Okay, and to make things clear, in case it wasn't before, the Raw vs. SmackDown score update this week refers to last week's shows. Not this week's. Actually, Raw just started as I'm filming this, and SmackDown will air tomorrow night. So, obviously, in case it wasn't clear, the score update does apply to last week's shows, which I didn't get to last week for a multitude of reasons, mainly the holiday and a bunch of other crazy shit that went on this weekend. Also, I apologize for my attire. I'm doing laundry right now, and a bathrobe and a black shirt is about all I have left at this point. So, but yeah, I'll be back to wearing my colorful, stupid, nerdy t-shirts. Before you know it, it'll be wonderful for everybody. But, yeah, a couple of things I wanted to get out of the way. I have my classic match review to do, which actually became a classic matches review, because the poll that I did on Twitter, which, thank you once again to everybody that voted, the poll was to determine which classic ECW match I was going to review, and as it turns out, we actually got a tie, so I will be reviewing 2 classic ECW matches as part of this video. I also want to do my next Star Wars review. I'll be filming that immediately after I'm done here. I've got Raw on in the background. I don't feel like I'll be missing much of anything, because, you know, it's Raw. But in any case, yeah, so you'll have 2 matches for me to review and a Star Wars review coming up. I'll film it tonight, but it'll probably be posted either tomorrow or Wednesday. So, that'll keep you all covered as far as that goes. But, one big thing I did want to talk about before I went into reviewing classic ECW matches, I wanted to give a major shout out and a major thank you to the El Rey Network for actually using my Lucha Underground videos as part of their Way of the Turkey Lucha Underground marathon. The 5 videos that I did all made it into the marathon of their Why These Episodes Matter segments. And I was shocked when I started getting texts from some people. It's like, dude, you're in the marathon. I was like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Because I could have sworn they said something when I made the submissions that I would be notified if my videos were going to be used. And I never got any kind of notice at all whatsoever, so I just assumed, oh, well, they just didn't use them. That's fine. And sure enough, I pop on my DVR, and I'm fast-forwarding through the commercials, and I'm like, oh my god, that's me. And I'm getting text messages going like, oh my god, dude, you're on the El Rey Network. And it was pretty cool, actually. It was a very cool of El Rey Network and Lucha Underground to do that. And I was happy to do it. It was, I did something similar for the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. I submitted videos when James Rolfe put out the request for fans to submit videos to go into the movie. And I did it as a lark, and because I am a fan of his work, and I thought, okay, sure, why not? And I was, even when he asked me, and this was the funny part, I got an email from somebody associated with him. I don't know who it was, obviously, but whoever it was that was running the account emailed me a special form that I had to sign to release the footage to be used into the film without any kind of monetary compensation, which I'm completely fine with, obviously. And I was like, even after signing that form, it didn't dawn on me that they were going to use the clips. I'm like, oh, they probably did that for everybody that submitted. I'm not going to get in the movie. And sure enough, the movie gets released, and I get a phone call from a friend. He's like, dude, you're in the movie! And it's like, that was really, really fucking weird. I still have not seen the movie, believe it or not. That's really weird. I have actually still not seen the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. I've seen the part that I'm in, but I haven't actually seen the movie. But in any case, again, whenever I'm a part of something like that, whether it be the Angry Video Game Nerd movie or El Rey Network's Lucha Underground Marathon, I really appreciate it because I don't consider myself the most charismatic guy or the most TV-friendly or camera-friendly person. But I guess when you're passionate for something and when you're a fan of something and that comes through, the right people recognize it once in a while, and it's very cool, and I really do appreciate it. And so once again, thank you so much to El Rey Network for including me in your Lucha Underground marathon. It was actually pretty cool to see, and it got brightened up my day, actually, because I was actually having a really shitty day that day. So you kind of saved my Saturday by doing that. So yeah, major thumbs up. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. But with all of that said, time to do some classic match reviews. Now, as I stated at the beginning of the video, the poll that I did resulted in a tie between the 3 options, so I will be reviewing both matches. The 2 matches that tied were Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow for the ECW television title from Living Dangerously 98, and Jerry Lynn versus Rob Van Dam for the TV title from Hardcore Heaven 1999. Wow, both TV title matches. This is really weird. But in any case, yeah, let's get started with Taz versus Bam Bam. Right off the bat, one of the things I really liked about this match was just the differences in the two talents. I think Taz was one of the most unique talents of his day because he was this, I mean, he was a short guy. I mean, he was a tiny dude. He was not really big, but he was this believably tough, like, pugnacious little animal. Like, it was really, I mean, Taz was really the perfect name for him because he really does kind of bring up memories of the Tasmanian Devil, but he, not in personality, but in stature and ferocity, if that makes any sense. And he was just this pissed off, angry little dude, excuse me, that would suplex the hell out of people. And it was something different. It wasn't, you know, that was one of the things that ECW could really brag about, is that they did boast a large variety of colorful characters and over-the-top personalities and these talents that boasted unique styles. Or in Sandman's case, no style at all. He was just like, Sandman literally looked like a drunk just stumbled into the arena and played wrestler that day. But for ECW, it worked. It was one of the, like, it doesn't work in any other company, but in ECW it worked. And I guess that's the appeal of ECW overall. It was a dive. It was low level. It was a dive. It was like going, you almost felt dirty while watching it. And, you know, the production values weren't as good as other companies, and it was low rent and all this other stuff. And people always make jokes about the bingo halls and all of that, but that was really the charm of it. That was really why it worked, and why, like, WWE's version of it in the mid-2000s just didn't work, because it had that WWE polish all over it. And it's just, that's not extreme, and that's not ECW. It's like, yeah, I'm not saying that all the WWE ECW shows were bad. I'm just saying that with the WWE backing it and with that polish on it, it's not the same. It's just, it needs to be a little dirty. It needs to be a little grungy and a little crappy, actually. It needs to have, like, those imperfections that really made it stand out, and obviously the characters and the personalities that went along with it. So, getting back to the match, Taz was, again, one of the more unique talents to come out of ECW, and it was, he fit right in. Again, WWE, he was one of those guys that they kind of dropped the ball with. When he first came in Royal Rumble 2000, you thought, oh my god, they just made another star. But they never really did anything with him after that. And then he became like a bully that went after Jerry Lawler and lost to him at least once or twice. And it's like, oh, well, Taz is ruined. And I'm like, him, honestly, like, his neck getting fucked up and him becoming an announcer was like, it kind of like gave him more job security, because he would have been released long before that if that wasn't the case. But yeah, so Taz really fit in well. And Bam Bam Bigelow, I think, is one of the most underrated talents of all time, I would say. You know, God rest his soul. Bam Bam was a big fat guy that could do cartwheels and high fly and do all this other shit. I mean, he was an amazing physical specimen, and could have really good matches with a lot of guys. There's a reason why he was trusted to go in there with Lawrence Taylor. Granted, the match itself wasn't very good, mainly because of Lawrence Taylor's inexperience, but Bam Bam made the match better than it had any right to be. Bam Bam, being the worker that he was able to make that match, I don't want to say watchable, but he made it more palatable, if that makes any sense. Like most other, well, there aren't many other talents that would have been able to do as well in that match as Bam Bam did. And you know, I think back to things like Survivor Series 87, where he came back. It was him versus Andre, the Gang, and King Kong Bundy in a 3-on-1 situation. He did really well in that. I remember the King of the Ring 93 had that amazing match with Brett in the finals. I mean, Bam Bam was a very, very underrated talent, and doesn't always get the credit, but he was one of those guys that I just, whenever he was around, I was like, no, Bam Bam's good. I think he's really good, and this match is proof of that. The match that him and Taz had was, again, it was classic ECW. It was very hardcore, a lot of hard hits. I mean, they did spots where Taz was suplexing Bam Bam into the crowd and over the security railing, and some of the table bumps that they did, and Taz just suplexing, like little tiny Taz like suplexing this big 400-pounder. Again, just made for great visuals and made for a great clash of styles, and made for a very exciting and brutal match. And I will say, what really makes this match memorable for me is the finish. It's one of the best finishes I think I've ever seen to any match, where Taz has got the Taz mission locked in, and Bam Bam looks like he's about to go out, but then in a last act of desperation, he like falls backward into the mat. But it's not like a typical, like, he just falls straight backwards. It looked like Bam Bam, like, jumped into the air and, like, just powered Taz down to the mat. And the force was so strong that the ring broke, and it was awesome. It was such a shock to see that happen. And fortunately, that big spot, that big visual, was the finish. Bam Bam got the pin after that, so he ultimately won the match. And like I said, one of the best crafted finishes I think I've ever seen. I miss the days where stuff like that would happen, because I think if they were to do that spot now, it would be like the midway point of the match and not the actual finish like it should be. Because I talk about it all the time. I see a lot of matches where they'll do like this really huge, insane spot, and it's not the finish. And it just kind of, like, the ultimate finish kind of feels like anticlimactic by comparison. One that did it very well, another one I was just thinking of, was Sting and Vader from Great American Bash 92, where Sting did the Stinger Splash, and he went face first into the ring post, and Vader finished him off from there. And I thought that was a very creative finish. And, you are ramming your face into a big metal pole, so yes, if that happens, you are out. And I like that they kept that psychology in play. But ECW was not always known for having great psychology. I've often cited ECW as being very damaging to the way matches are worked. I've already talked about doing the big spots in the middle of matches and an anti-climax coming at the end and things like that. But something like that, yeah, that's really good. Really good booking there. It's like they let the big spot be the finish, and it, didn't hurt Taz at all. It made for a great visual. It was very memorable, and it put over Bam Bam's size and power. It was just a really cool, creative finish, and one that I really gotta praise. I thought it was very cool. So again, and I'm not the only one to say this, but people that say that ECW was lacking in psychology, they also, another criticism towards ECW, I feel like they were also the ones that really popularized the finisher fests. Because there were guys that had like 3 or 4 finishers. I think Sabu was one of them. And would never beat anybody with it. So it's like, well, who cares when you hit the move? I mean, you never win with it. But in any case, yeah, Taz versus Bam Bam. Very exciting match. Very good. Really enjoyable. But next we move on to Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn, which is one of the most famous match pairings that ECW ever had. I mean, when people talk about ECW and the feuds and the match pairings, you hear Raven and Tommy Dreamer come up. You hear Malenko and Guerrero come up. You hear, trying to think of some other ones. Yeah, I mean, I guess Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn would be the other, like, really big one. But, Raven and Sandman, that's another huge one that comes up a lot. But yeah, when you hear, like, the classic ECW match pairings, Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn is usually at the top of people's lists. And with good reason. Their matches were amazing. And I would probably put this match as my #1 favorite ECW match of all time. I really highlighted the strengths of both men. And here's my... and this match really highlights my opinion, my real opinion of both guys, Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam. Let's start with Rob. Rob Van Dam, to me, was never a great worker. To me, he was always a spot guy. And that's not always a bad thing, because Rob Van Dam, it's kind of like what I said about Goldberg, even though Rob Van Dam could do more than Goldberg physically. It is kind of the same thing, where he's kind of a one-trick pony. It's like you kind of know what you're going to get when you watch a Rob Van Dam match. You're going to get all the spots, especially in his WWE years, where it's like, oh my god, I could set a stopwatch to his matches. It was crazy. But I mean, you saw one Rob Van Dam match in WWE. You saw fucking 95% of them. It was nuts. But Rob always had a lot of charisma, very flashy, Had a personality that was easy to gravitate to, whether he was a heel or a face. It was just, he was one of those guys that was just impossible to hate him. He was just like, he was cool. I mean, Rob Van Dam was fucking cool. So the fact that he didn't have a whole lot of psychology in his matches didn't really matter, because he was so charismatic and so likable, and all the spots he did were so cool to kind of complement that Rob he was just a very unique and awesome talent. But to get really good matches out of it, again, to kind of paint the same picture of what I've talked about with guys like Goldberg and the Ultimate Warrior, they have all the intangibles. They've got the character, the personality, the ring presence, and, the fan reaction, all that stuff. But if you put him in there with a worker that knows what he's doing and can lead the dance, like Ultimate Warrior, he needed Rick Rude and Randy Savage to make him look really, really good. Rob Van Dam, you put him in the ring with Jerry Lynn, it was fucking magic, because if you put Rob with somebody that knows how to really accentuate Rob's plus side and really hide the weaknesses and make the matches make some sense and make them as exciting as possible. Jerry Lynn knew how to do that. And I would, again, you look at Jerry, not the most flashy personality, not like an over-the-top type of guy, not the greatest on the mic or anything like that, but very respectable, because he's one of the greatest workers of all time. I would say, as far as ring psychology and putting matches together, I would say Jerry Lynn is in the top 10 of all time, as far as great workers go. I would put him up that high. And he's, again, I talked about it with Bam Bam, but he is very underrated, I think, as a talent. And I think a lot of the reasons he gets overlooked is because he didn't really have a big run in the WWF. He worked there, but he never really had a big run. And I also think that, people kind of overlook him because he doesn't have the flashy personality or the mic skills or anything like that. So he just kind of, especially when you look at ECW and you see personalities like Rob and Taz and Sabu and Raven and Terry Funk and guys like that. So personality-wise, he didn't measure up to those guys, but as far as putting matches together, Jerry Lynn's second to none, and this match was proof of it. I would say that this is Rob's best match. And again, it really accentuated all of Rob's positives by him doing all these crazy spots, but also made the match as exciting as possible, and it was a well put together match. A lot of the variations they did with the Van Daminator were very cool. Even the one that they did one spot where Rob, like, I'm pretty sure it was Van Daminator, and he kicked Lynn in the face, and he just fell and right to the concrete floor and looked like he landed on his head. And I've heard that Lance Storm had to drive him to the emergency room immediately after the match was over. So how Jerry Lynn finished the match, I don't know. But yeah, the action that these two were able to put together and the exciting contest from bell to bell was really something to see. And again, not only did it have all the positives of Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam, but of ECW in general, because again, it worked in a lot of that hardcore stuff. You saw the chairs, you saw the tables and all of that, but it was a well-crafted match. It wasn't just garbage hardcore wrestling, which is what ECW kind of, whether by design or not, that was kind of their reputation, was kind of that garbage type of wrestling. At least that, I think that was, which isn't entirely fair, as I've said, because they did have guys that knew how to make those hardcore matches really work, but that was the perception of ECW from certain people. This match had the hardcore stuff, but did it in a way that told a story and made it make sense. So it didn't feel like garbage wrestling. And both guys were such great athletes that it was a very exciting contest to watch. And it still holds up to this day. I still really like the match. Rob Van Dam obviously got the win with the second 5-star frog splash, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I could be wrong, but I don't think Jerry Lynn ever beat him. So you always had this idea. So even when they reignited the feud in TNA in like 2010, 2011, I want to say, maybe 2012, I don't know. Even when they reignited the feud, it felt like there was still something there. There was some juice there because Lynn never beat him. So it always felt like Lynn was kind of like pursuing that, like, I've got to beat Rob Van Dam at some point. And I don't think he ever did. So, but yeah, as far as matches go, I feel like Rob and Lynn had some of the greatest matches in ECW's history. Like I said, this one might be my favorite in the entire history of the promotion. And when I think of the good stuff from ECW and the really big highlights, Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn definitely comes to mind. It's a classic without question. So That is all I have to say about my classic match reviews. Hope you all enjoyed. Once again, thank you all for watching, and also once again, thank you again to the El Rey Network for posting my videos and using it as part of their Lucha Underground Marathon. Very, very cool. But like I said, I've got a Star Wars video to film, and I've got Raw to watch. Again, doesn't look like I've missed much. Nope. Okay. But yeah, that is all I have for this particular video. So until then, I will see you all later.